Hello to everybody who has no idea where anything is going ever, any of the time. Never, ever, ever. It's Beautiful Anonymous. 1 hour, one phone call, no names, no holds barred.
I'd rather go one-on-one. I think it'll be more fun, and I'll get to know you, and you'll get to know me.
Hello, Chris Gethard here. Welcome to Beautiful Anonymous. If you're somebody who wants to skip the intro, as always, I'll remind you my tour dates are at punchup.live/Chris Gethard. You can get bonus content at beautifulanonymous.com. But if you're not interested in hearing that in the intro, you want to get right to the phone call, it's about 8 minutes, I think, this week. I forgot to time it exactly, but I think it's about 8 minutes. If you skip, you'll be really close to the beginning of the call. Enjoy it, everybody. Hi, everybody. My name's Chris Gethard, and I'm so psyched to welcome you to today's episode of Beautiful Anonymous. I don't compare the calls to each other, but I can tell you, at least for me, this one's an all-time classic. Not only because I felt like I clicked with this caller, but because it goes in so many directions that I don't even know what to say about it. From being in a military family, to major life changes, to living truthfully, to adoption, to travel, to everything, so many things. But one of the things I realized that I say about this caller is very unpretentious, and this caller is just putting stuff out there. But this caller is also someone who has done something so admirable, which is allowed the process of living life to inform how he approaches the rest of life, which sounds so easy to do and so simple, but it's not. We get locked in on things that we think are supposed to be truth, and things that feel dogmatic, and things that we fear. And our caller has just sort of, in such a lovely way, decided to let life experience change so many things. I will say that I always plug beautifulanonymous.com. This is where, if you want more episode, you will get more. And every week I stand by it and think it's really great. I will tell you that one of the stories in the 5 questions after this one is just bananas, and that's coming from me. And it's earned. I don't think we get that story if we don't spend an hour and 15 minutes developing a lot of comfort. But the story of Kinky Claws will live within this community in infamy. And as of right now, there are only 797 people signed up at beautifulanonymous.com. So only 797 people will ever know the story of Kinky Claws. But God, is it a good story. And I hope some more of you sign up just to hear it. And don't forget, we recently announced that if you do sign up, episodes are also ad-free, which is a nice little bonus. Also want to thank everybody. I just went to the P.O. Box today and picked up, I believe, 4 more submissions for the Beautiful Anonymous magazine. Last week I picked up 6 more. We're in the process of scanning everything, and then we're going to start figuring out how we want to lay it out and how professional we want to get it printed and how much we want it to be like an old school fanzine. There's discussions to be had. But for anybody who's thinking about submitting to the magazine, it's starting to fill up, and I'm starting to think it's going to transition from accepting submissions to actually putting it together. So get them in now. Send anything at all in the mail to me at Chris Gethard, P.O. Box 972, New Vernon, New Jersey, 07976. That's P.O. Box 972, New Vernon, New Jersey, 07976. Put it on my name. And thanks to everybody. There's been some fascinating things coming in. Stories, visuals, unexpected things that I'm so happy to share you. Postcards from all over the world. Even people's envelopes are often being decorated and filled out in ways where I go, just the envelope itself should be a part of the magazine. And thanks to everybody who's been contributing there. Want to remind you that I've got tour dates. I'm going out on the road. First things first, ticket sales for the Laughing Together benefit show in Brooklyn remain sad to the point that it's shocking. I have a feeling they will pick up, but if you're near Brooklyn, New York, and you want to come see me do comedy along with some really great people, including Michael Cruz Kayne, who just got nominated for a Lucille Lortel and a Drama Desk Award, Gianmarco Soresi, who if you see, like, he does so many videos out there, but they are the healthy, good, positive version of these trends of crowd interaction videos. He's fantastic. Millie Tamarez, who's just for years been one of my favorite, just one of the most naturally charismatic performers, co-hosted with me and my friend Christi Somers, June 13th, Brooklyn, New York at Littlefield. I'm also out there doing shows all over the country. Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Woodstock, New York, Kansas City, Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, Cudahy, Wisconsin. People keep correcting me. Cudahy, Wisconsin. I guess is how you say the name of that town. It's right outside of Milwaukee. Ferndale, Michigan. Somerville, Mass. Garwood, New Jersey. That's going to be a big one. Baltimore, Maryland. Hamden, Connecticut. A whole bunch of these are with Eddie Pepitone, who is a legend in the game, someone I've admired for years. Keegan Tyndall opening the shows, who was going to be so famous probably before this tour is even done. And then I don't even know if I'm allowed to tell you guys about this yet, but I'm also going to be doing shows in some cities that you don't always go to. And it's going to be part of a thing called the Good Laugh Tour. Ticket sales are not up yet as of me recording this. They might be by the time of release. I'll be in Evansville, Indiana, Muncie, Indiana, Hazard, Kentucky, Memphis, Tennessee, and Fayetteville, Arkansas. So like I said, these are some markets that are not a place where every comedian stops, and I'll be stopping there with 4 or 5 other comedians as part of this tour. It's going to be really awesome. And you can get info on all of those things at punchup.live/Chris Gethard. And you can watch the Half My Life special in its entirety there. If you put your email address in, it's a site. I'm getting really organized with that side of my career. So go to punchup.live/Chris Gethard. You can find links to all of those shows. If any of the cities I mentioned are not up yet, it just means that I don't have the ticket link. I'm going to get them all up as soon as I can, but a ton of them are available for sale right now. Let's sell out some shows and have some fun. That's what I say. That's what I say. But in the meantime, let's not worry about the plugs. Let's worry about the fact that, like I said, today's caller is charming, is funny, but maybe more than anything else is thoughtful and has a depth of thought to share about so many different topics. And I just can't stress enough how much I like talking to people and how interesting people are. And this is one of the most interesting callers in the history of the show. And reminder, one of the all-time standout stories that's ever been shared on Beautiful Anonymous is part of this week's bonus content. And I think you guys feel times are tight. If you don't have the money, I'm not mad about it. If you do, you don't want to miss this one. Anyway, enjoy the call, everybody.
Thank you for calling Beautiful Anonymous. A beeping noise will indicate when you are on the show with the host.
Chris?
Hi.
Hey. I know that based on last week's episode, it sounds like you haven't been having the best time lately. So instead of asking you how you're doing, what's the best thing that's happened to you this week?
I'm going to tell you something. And this is not me blowing smoke. One of the best things that has happened to me is you being that thoughtful. And man, do I feel lucky that I'm like, for a medium like podcast where it's entertainment, but you're also hearing the people in your ears. I am very lucky that there's still so many people listening to the show who would be that thoughtful. That's one of the best things that's happened to me this week, is that the thoughtfulness of that question. I'll also say it's continued to be a very hard week, but I'll tell you here's one thing I did, which is not fiscally the smartest thing I've ever done, but the lease on our car is coming up. And I said, screw it. I'm just gonna go get a new car now. We're supposed to get a new car in like 5 weeks. I'm getting it now. I want something to be excited about. So
good. That's awesome.
Yeah. I said, let me bump this up, and then we can send our other car to the mechanic for a while, get everything fixed up on it, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to bump up the timeline on this So we got a new car in the driveway 4 weeks earlier than anticipated. There we go. How about you? What's the best thing that happened to you this week?
Now, you know what? The best thing that happened to me this week didn't happen this week. It's happening next week. My son left for the Marines 17 weeks ago, and I haven't talked to him. Well, I had about a 3-minute phone conversation with him about 4 weeks ago. But other than that, I haven't talked to him or seen him in 17 weeks, and I am super excited to see him next week.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Wait, you said he's in the Marines?
Yeah. Yeah, he joined the Marines. Shocked the hell out of his mom and I. Typically, kids do that right out of high school, but he went off to school, had a tech degree, had a fantastic job, and took about a $30,000 pay cut to go to the Marines. And I tried my best for about, 3, 4, 5 months to talk him out of it. But
wow,
he's old enough now. He's got to make his own decisions. And I tell you what, it's a weird feeling to be so proud of your son for doing something you really didn't want him to do in the first place.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a real mix of emotions there. I also will say,
yeah.
There's a part of me that feels like, and I'm not trying to put any words in your mouth, but just my gut instinct is that if I knew somebody who went to school for something else, had a degree, had a job, and then out of the blue made a massive life change like that, let alone one that involves something as intense as the military, let alone as intense as the Marines, probably regarded as the most intense branch, I would sit there and worry about if there was some level of breakdown or panic attack or mental break happening there. I'm sure. Did that cross your mind?
Actually, no. It was kind of a lot of things fell into place for this to be the decision that he made. Number one, I love my son. He is like my mini-me. Drives the fact that that's the case, it makes my wife's life even harder because we're both got some serious ADHD and drive her nuts. But he was a horrible student. Super smart, always did very well on the state tests and stuff like that, but just never did his homework. And I basically had to grab him by the collar and drag him through high school. And then when he was getting his tech degree, right at the end, right before he should have graduated, he called me and he said, "I don't think I'm going to graduate. I've got a F in this class." And I said, "Well, let's look at the numbers." And I said, "Well, if you get a 85 on the final for this class, you'll pass the class." And he said, "I've never gotten a 70 on a single thing the entire semester." I said, "What are you doing this weekend?" He said, "I'm going out with John." I said, "No, you're not. We're going to meet at your grandparents' house, spend the entire weekend there going through flashcards." And he ended up getting a 95 on the test and graduated, got a job. I think his thing is this is the first thing that he's, number one, he wanted this. It wasn't my idea. I didn't help him. I didn't kind of grab him by the collar and drag him through. And then he also happened to run into 2 coworkers at his first job that were Marines. And his best buddy from high school was a Marine. And he just fit in really well with them. He's the right kind of odd for the Marines.
Wow. That's wild. That's wild to witness as a parent. And you mentioned that you had tried to convince him not to go in. At what point does it turn into some pride? And is there still worry, or are you on board now? Is it all pride, or is there still worry?
Is it? It's all pride, but it's. I'd say the reasons that I'm not excited about the fact that he's in the Marines no longer has to do with me feeling it was the wrong decision for him. We've gotten letters back from him, and you can tell that this is where he's meant to be. He's excited. He's going to be fixing planes. That's what he's doing for his job. He's super excited. The only thing I don't like is I know that I'm no longer going to go probably 17 weeks with not talking to him at all, but I am going to go at least the next 5 years of not seeing him very often.
Oh, wow.
So
And did you mention how long ago he went in?
Basic training, he went off, it'll be 16 weeks ago. It'll be 17 weeks when he graduates. It's supposed to be 13 weeks, but he had a setback and had about 4 weeks setback during training. So
this is
longer than we even expected.
This is really new.
Yeah. He left February 12th.
What weird question to ask you about your son. What kind of physical shape was he? Was he like a gym rat before he left? Or was he like doughy like me?
No. He was not in shape. He was not in sports, was not in shape. Much like his dad, he was a band geek in high school. And when he first signed that the letter you initially sign up to enlist, you don't leave right away. You sign you're saying, I'm going to go off. And there's a long space, over a year between when he signed that first paper and he actually left. But when he started out, he technically was overweight for what they would even allow you to leave for basic training at. And my wife's comment was, we really don't have to worry about him making it because there's no way he's going to be disciplined enough to get in shape enough to make it to basic training. But man, that kid, as soon as I saw, it was starting, I ran 1.5 miles a day. And then I ran 1.5 miles every day. And now I'm running 1.5 miles and I'm going to the gym every day. And it was just like, oh, you really want this. This is really what you want to do.
Is he jacked now?
That was the minute to kind of turn from, what's that?
Is he all jacked now?
I don't know if he's jacked. He managed to drop probably 40 pounds in, I'd say, about 6 months. He was in very good shape and decently solid by the time he left. And then when they go to basic, they work them so hard that they usually at basic don't get jacked because they usually lose even. He left at I think he was 194 when he left. And my expectation, based on what he's telling me, I should expect when I walk in there, he'll be lean and strong and probably about 170. And he was 235 probably a year ago.
Is that, I can't even imagine as a parent. Would that make me cry? Would that make me laugh? Would it make me happy? I don't even know. I can't predict what my reaction would be.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes.
To all of them?
All of those? All of the above? Yeah.
And now, I'm not trying to scare you, but I'm sure you considered it of your son is joining,
Mm-hmm.
The stereotype of the Marines is you talk to other branches of the military and they go, man, the Marines, those guys are too aggressive. Those guys are a handful. But then you talk to the Marines and a lot of it is, well, we're the first ones in. We're the tip of the spear. We have to be aggressive attack dogs. So there's all these thoughts about the Marines, and can't be easy as a parent to also say, on one level, joining the United States military right now, it's we did famously pull out of Afghanistan a year or two ago. But we're also looking at proxy wars in the Ukraine with a lot of people worried that those are going to spill over into more and more entanglements that are going to drag more and more countries into it. You must be reading that news very differently than how I'm reading that news right now. And I get freaked out when I read it, but I can't imagine for you.
I am kind of between politics and global events, I've always been obsessed. But yeah, it does take on a new meaning. It makes me concerned about what could happen in November too. So,
what are your thoughts on that?
I have to be careful about what I say because that's one of the things as parents, we're not allowed to say anything negative about, how will I say this? We're not allowed to say anything negative about current presidents. And I also would need to be very careful about me not saying anything negative about a person that could possibly become president again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I'm going to have to pass on that question. I mean, it's the one thing that they tell us as parents because they have to respect who's ever in office, regardless of who's in office.
That's intense. But you do realize, it's, I've said it a few times. Everyone needs to buckle up because I'm actually pretty amazed. I remember 2016 and 2020, as we got closer to the elections, they started coming up more and more. It's going to be happening on this show. It's on all of our minds. Mm-hmm. But you sit there and you think about the military and military parents. You go, there's so many thoughts about maybe the military leans more conservative, or you start to hear rumors that, you start to read stuff. Oh, QAnon thought affected the military during the last election, and it kind of had some roots there. But then you talk to people who actually have a history in the military or family in the military or a present in the military, and you realize that while I'm sure those things happen and are outliers, all of those people connected to the military have a very vested interest in going, who keeps us safe? Who makes rational decisions and keeps us safe? And like you said, you cannot indicate one way or the other your opinions on who that might be, but it becomes give you political
opinions. I just can't say anything about a president. I need to be careful about what I say about the commander-in-chief. I can talk to you about my political views. And I think that one of the reasons that the military, like people think that everybody in the military is conservative, is just because of how, I think a lot of people on the right will, kind of some virtue signaling as far as, pro-military and the attitude. But I think that when you actually get into the military, just because, that's one of the things that I'm honestly most excited about my son going into the military is we're in a very, very, very small Midwestern town. Like the town I'm in is the county seat. So I'm in the biggest town in the county, and our town has 1,800 people.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
His younger sister, who's adopted, is probably one of only literally on one hand brown kids in the school. So the military is so diverse that I personally don't believe that military members are necessarily predominantly conservative. I think that you have on my wife's side of the family, they're all very conservative and they've got a few members serving. So I do think that, I'm not saying it's not uncommon, but I think that I think there's a good mix. I don't think that it's overwhelmingly conservative as far as the people serving.
My guess, and I'm not smart enough to know if this is true, and I have not read up on this, but as somebody who has, I've gone and done talks with the Navy. I've done USO shows with the Army, with a base, mostly infantry. My guess would be that for people who have been inside the military or who are authorities on it, they would probably say the binary of American politics really gets exposed with the military, because my guess would be that the military is one area of American society that supersedes conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, and that if you really got down to the nitty-gritty, that the minutia of how military people think about their politics does not fall into those binaries, that there's so much more thinking about safety, about funding, about infrastructure and support that maybe exposes some of the danger of just, you get two choices, everybody. My guess would be that the military actually probably has a more sophisticated and layered look at politics because of so many actual concerns that affect where they might live tomorrow, danger they might be in tomorrow. And when I say tomorrow, I mean literally they might get a call that you are leaving tomorrow for a situation where you don't know what the infrastructure is like and what the safety is like. So my guess would be that it's easy to go, military's conservative. But my guess would be that those in the know will probably be able to chime in after they hear this and say, you are right. It's outside of the sphere of what polls account for and what talking head news shows account for. And it's a lot more layered and sophisticated than you would ever expect. Yeah. That's my gut instinct.
Yeah. But and I'm kind of an oddball when it comes to politics, because I was actively involved in working on Republican campaigns at the state level in my previous state, to the point now where I am probably about, you and I are probably about as progressive, honestly, now.
Is that personal change in you, or is that just a change of environment?
Yeah, that's having experiences in life that influenced me to see the world differently, we'll say.
Talk to me about that.
I'm always real careful because I always... what's that?
I said, talk to me about that.
Talk to you about that?
If you want or not.
Well, we don't... how much time do we got left?
We have 41 minutes left.
Okay. So yeah, no, I was like, my mom's a union member public school teacher. And let's just say she was not the proudest when at the age of 17, I became the youngest person ever chosen to be a state delegate for the Republican Party from our district. But that's kind of where I started. But I think things just started slowly changing in my life. I would say the first big one was probably, so my wife and I had 2 boys, holy cow. So my wife and I had 2 boys, and then we went through, I got snipped. And then my wife and I almost got divorced. We were separated for about 3 months, and went to some marriage counseling at a church we went to, ended up coming back together. And about a year and a half later, I looked at my wife and I said, so what would you think about having another kid? And she knew that by that I meant adoption. And he said, yeah, I think I want to do that. I think I'd be up for that. And so we started looking at adoptions. We adopted a little girl from the Philippines. But because we were going to be adopting transracially across racial, someone who wasn't white, we had to go through some diversity classes, and it really just gave me a completely different look at the world. And that's the first time I just kind of started. And it wasn't just based on racial stuff, but also just looking at economic disparities, things I'd taken for granted, and just not taking the time to realize that, my kids have a real advantage. I mean, they had a parent home every night that could help them with homework, cook them dinner and stuff like that. And you've got, single moms that are living in an urban area that, they get done working their 1 or 2 jobs. And then they have to go grocery shopping, but because they don't have a car, they can't afford a car. They have to take the bus to the grocery store. But now they can only get enough groceries. They get 2 kids at home. They can only get enough groceries that they can carry in their hands. So now that means that, 2 or 3 or 4 nights a week, they're having to go get groceries plus all the other stuff. And it's just, you just start looking at stuff like that and just realizing that, people that want to just gloss over privilege. You know, it's frustrating. I mean, it's frustrating. It was a slow steamroll. I'm probably in the minority in that I consider myself both a progressive and a born again Christian, and so probably one of the hardest things grappling with was abortion. But I honestly, one of the things I do a lot now is I talk to fellow Christians and talk to them about why, if you're Christian, you should be pro-choice. For so many years with my Christian faith, as far as when it comes to social justice and stuff like that, I felt like when I was voting conservative, I honestly felt I had to ignore a lot of the things that my God was telling me to do as far as caring for other people. And I can tell you, as what I would consider myself as being a born again Christian and a progressive, I have far fewer conflicts between my political views and my faith now.
I'm going to go ahead and say it, and I am not trying to blow any smoke.
What's that?
I said I'm going to go ahead and say something, and I'm not trying to blow smoke. You are one of the most...
All right.
Everything you say is like a Russian nesting doll of 6 other things I want to talk about, and it's all born out of you being so clearly thoughtful and adjusting your life based on lived experience. And I don't know if other people in your life have told you this, but it's really fascinating. Everything you're telling me and about how it keeps shifting your perspective is just super fascinating. It really is.
Yeah. It's honestly a lot of my willingness to change comes from I got my college degree later in life, and it was kind of a capstone course that was a civics course, but also got into like philosophy and stuff like that. And one of the assignments that I really liked was talking about whether I was a moral absolutist or a moral relativist. And I argued that moral relativism didn't exist, because eventually you're going to get to something that everybody's going to eventually get to something that they feel is morally wrong. So I believe everybody is a moral absolutist. It's just that the people that consider themselves moral relativists really are moral absolutists that are just open-minded. The people that are willing to admit that they're moral absolutists are really just narcissists. So I just, for me, it's like I believe there's right and wrong, but that doesn't, and I believe that, you know, what I believe today, I believe is right. I have to believe that what I believe today is right, but I have to be willing to admit that I might be lacking information or experiences that could completely change the ballgame. It can rewire the world to cause me to look at it in a completely different way. And you just can't hold on. You can't be willing to just close your eyes, plug your ears, and not be willing to listen. Because I mean, if your belief can't hold up to scrutiny, I mean, were they really worth anything in the beginning?
My mind is being blown right now. I'm loving this. You're breaking it down.
Yeah. And to think I wanted to call you and just tell you about the crazy story about how I subdued a person on a plane.
And let's pause there, because one thing's becoming clear. This caller can spin in any different direction at any different time, and I don't know what's happening, but it's all going to be interesting. We're going to hear that story. We're going to hear that story when we get back. Almost every day this week, I have at some point grabbed myself an IQ bar, and I have enjoyed it thoroughly. To know that I have something in my cabinet that is quick, that is nutritious, and that somehow also really tastes good and gets the job done, it's not a small thing. And I'm a big, big fan of IQ Bar, all of their products, especially the bars themselves. Plant-based protein bars, quick, friendly for all diets, These are brain-boosting breakfasts. They got everything you need in there. And then on top of it, it's not just the bars. IQ Bar also has IQ Mix, which is a rehydration mix. You take that after workouts. You take that first thing in the morning. Makes you feel wide awake. Makes you feel good. There's also IQ Joe, which is their type of coffee. But whereas a lot of coffees make you jittery, the magnesium in IQ Joe smooths everything out. No jitters. It's really an incredible company. It's really incredible products. And like I said, I am most partial to the IQ bars themselves. I have a 5-year-old kid. I also have like 4 full-time jobs because I'm unable to slow down. And I'm lucky. I define my own life in so many ways, but it means I'm being pulled in a million different directions. You all know half the time I wake up, there's days where I wake up and forget that I'm supposed to be at the airport and I have to just sprint out the front door to get there. And the IQ bar is such a good thing to have. And even if you're not somebody living a scattered lifestyle like me, just having an IQ bar in the cabinet, you know you've got a good option 24 hours a day. It's worth having. Power up your life with superior brain and body nutrition products from IQ Bar. Start each day right with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their ultimate sampler pack includes all 3. You get 7 IQ Bar flavors, 4 IQ Mix flavors, and 4 IQ Joe flavors. And today, our listeners get an exclusive offer of 20% off plus free shipping. Text BEAUTIFUL to 64,000. That's 64000. You text BEAUTIFUL to 64,000. You get 20% off that sampler pack. It's great. I've done it. It's an amazing way to try all the IQ Bar products and flavors. I just need to be clear. All of the flavors are free of gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, artificial sweeteners, so you can rest easy that these things are above board and good for you. Whether you're running a marathon or running errands, IQ Bar empowers people with superior brain and body nutrition. These are plant-based protein bars, like I said, and they're just packed with high-quality ingredients. And I have to pay more and more attention to this the older I get. They are vegan, gluten-free. They're low in sugar, low in carbs. They have amazing flavors, though. They still have chocolate sea salt, peanut butter chip. There's so many delicious flavors, but they leave out all the chemicals and all the nonsense that drive you nuts. IQ Bar makes the #1 brain and body nutrition bar, as well as a fantastic hydration mix and an incredible instant coffee. There's over 10,000 5-star reviews and counting. Refuel smarter with IQ Bar's Ultimate Sampler Pack. That's 7 IQ Bars, 4 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. And now, our special podcast listeners get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus you get free shipping. To get your 20% off, text the word BEAUTIFUL to 64,000. Get your discount right now. Text the word BEAUTIFUL to 64000. That's BEAUTIFUL to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Thanks to the advertisers who help us bring the show to the world. Now, let's get back to the phone call.
Yeah, and to think I wanted to call you and just tell you about the crazy story about how I subdued a person on a plane.
Excuse me?
I had to take a person down on a plane. You know, like
what are you talking
physically
about?
subdue them on a passenger airplane.
What are you talking about? What did this person? What did the person do?
It was actually when we were flying to the Philippines to bring my daughter home. It was, if you remember, it would have been back like in 2009. We had that swine flu epidemic.
Yeah, we were all freaked out about the swine flu.
And yeah, swine flu. So our flight was Japan Airlines flight to connect to Tokyo, and so we land in Tokyo. And I want to be very clear that I'm going to reference a mom and her daughter. And I've told this story before, and everybody makes the assumption as I'm telling the story that I subdued this mother. I did not. It was not. But so we land at Tokyo, and they come on. They have these people that come on like in stormtrooper outfits. We're talking like white hazmat suits, top to bottom. They make you sit on the plane, and they did full body scans of everybody to see whether they were running a fever. And in front of my wife was this young mother with 2 kids. One of them was like a 4-month-old. The other one had to be like maybe 3 or 4. And so, I mean, babies always run a little bit hot. And so they did a body scan of the baby, and they said the baby had a fever. And so they actually pulled the mom and the baby off of the plane, but left the 4-year-old by herself. My wife ended up having to watch her. But as I was sitting there, there's a guy that I could tell he was, it's one of those where you have the 3 sections of seats. You have like maybe like 2 seats by the one window, 4 seats in the middle, 2 seats on the other window. And so this guy was just in front of me. I was probably 3 or 4 rows back from the galley. And this guy was sitting on an edge seat, and I could tell he was getting agitated. And I tapped my wife. I said, I think that guy's going to try to run off the plane, because they told us we all couldn't get off the plane until they verified that this baby wasn't sick. And so I kind of worked my way around to the other side of the galley, walked into the galley, and there was a Japan Airlines flight attendant there. And she kind of looked at me like, you're not supposed to be in there. And I just kind of pointed at the guy. And I think that she could tell that he was agitated as well. And so all of a sudden the guy reaches up, grabs the flight attendant, and tries to break for the exit of the plane. And I ended up having to tackle the guy against the wall and wrestle him into a seat.
And then how does that end?
And then
that sounds like the beginning, or maybe the middle.
Really well. I got the guy. I didn't hurt the guy. I got the control guy really quickly, got him in the seat, and then I just kind of said, hey, everything's going to be fine. They're just checking out the baby. And then I just kind of stood between him and the exit. We didn't have to like tie him up or grab some duct tape or anything like that.
Do you have any sort of background in grappling?
None. None. Watching several high school wrestling meets.
At what point in your mind do you go?
Yeah, it's one of the things I was like.
At what point are you like, it's me?
As soon as I get started, someone's going to help.
When does the switch flip where you go, I'm doing it. It's me. I'm the one who's going to help. Shit. When does that switch flip?
My whole thing my whole thought was, I cannot get stuck in Tokyo. My daughter is waiting for me in the Philippines. And if this guy runs off the plane and we all get quarantined, that's not an option I'm willing to consider. So no, yeah, it was like, I cannot have this get fucked up. Because it was like our connection was coming in like 4 hours. I'm not gonna.
In a weird way, it must have made you feel so connected to your child, because you went into like Papa Bear mode. And I'm sure, you mentioned you were taking all sorts of classes, and I'm sure some of those was about the connection with an adopted child as opposed to a biological child. I'm sure that's a topic of discussion. You must have had a moment of like, oh, I'm already in love with this kid if I'm fighting a man on a plane in Japan.
Oh yeah. I mean, that happened way before that. I mean, so we were going through the adoption process, and the Philippines, once you got your paperwork all in order, it was about 1.5 years late. And I had also belonged to a website called, I can't remember the name. It was one where you could adopt waiting children, and most of the waiting children had some physical or health issues, which my wife and I were okay depending on what those were. But the biggest issue I ran into is a lot of them that were coming up because we wanted to adopt a little girl. And so a lot of the notifications I would get would be from China. And my wife at the time, you both had to be 30 years old to adopt from China. My wife was 29, so we couldn't adopt through China. And so all of a sudden I got this email saying, hey, there's 2 girls from Asia, because they just give you the region. One is 2 and one is 9. And I kind of looked at it, but I'd kind of gotten in the habit of not even looking at it anymore because it wasn't worth the time. But I went to lunch, and there was just something odd that bugged me. I don't know what it was. I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I went back and looked, and there was something kind of odd. They'd always have like an identifier number, and one of them was 0001, and one was 0002. And I was like, well, I'll call. So I called the phone number, and the person answered, and I mentioned what I had seen, and they said, oh, you mean the 2 girls from the Philippines? And I said, what do you mean from the Philippines? Because we'd already planned on going to the Philippines. She said, well, they're in the Philippines. I said, but the Philippines doesn't have a waiting children's program. And she said, well, they didn't. They do now, and we're the first adoption agency to work with it, and these are actually the first 2 girls we're trying to place. I even called my social worker, and she's like, they don't have, this is a scam. And I sent her the paperwork. But anyway, so the gal at this adoption agency that was trying to find places for these 2 girls said, would you like the paperwork? And that's a big thing in adoption terms, because when they say, do you want the paperwork, that means they're going to send you the information about this child, and no one else will be allowed to consider adopting these kids until you look over the paperwork and see if it's the right fit. And we had planned on naming our daughter after my grandmother, and the social worker had warned us, hey, you guys don't have to have an infant to adopt, so you'll probably get a 2 or 3 year old, and they might be used to their name. And I was like, well, if that's the case, not a big deal. Well, I get the paperwork, and I call up the adoption agency. I said, excuse me, can you tell me how to pronounce this girl's first name? She says, yes, it's. And so my daughter has answered to from day one, and she's actually named has her original name now is her middle name. And if you wouldn't mind bleeping either of those, but bleeping both of those, I'd appreciate it. Actually, I probably shouldn't have said that.
Of course.
So for those that get her to get bleeped, the names rhymed.
Yes, one is a little bit.
Yeah, it was.
Yes, one's a little more common. One sounds like it.
Yeah.
For people who are bleeped, it's really neither here nor there. Story stands.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of, I felt close to her from like right off the bat. I mean, just a connection to her right away. So.
Wow. You've got a lot of stories.
Yeah. I mean, what's that?
You got a lot of stories. Would you mind if I asked you about one thing that you brought up? If you don't want to dwell on it more, it's totally fine.
Yeah, go for it.
One thing you brought up that I kind of flagged as very interesting is I think a lot of people have the cynical viewpoint that when couples separate, that's a step on the way to divorce. But you mentioned separation for 3 months where you almost got divorced, then came back and adopted another child, which is a real huge swing in the other direction. And I think it would be eye-opening to hear how you and your wife did that. Because I think a lot of people would say that the cliche is separation is just a pit stop on the way to divorce. Maybe that's too cynical, but you broke that trend at the very least, right?
Yeah. I will say one thing we did is I think that if we had gotten divorced, it would have been fairly amicable. I didn't want it. It was a shock that she kind of came to me and said she wanted a divorce. But one thing we did for the kids, because at the time my middle child now was like, he was less than a year old. But we kept going to church together and having lunch as a family, the 4 of us together every Sunday. And then one day we were at church, and this would probably have been, so we got separated like the week before Thanksgiving. And this would have been about the week or 2 before Christmas. No, it probably was about 3 weeks after we separated. Our church decided to do the first time ever they're going to have a marriage course. And my wife looked at me and asked me if I'd like to go. And I said, well, I'll talk to my boss on Monday and see if I can get the time off. And my wife just looked defeated. And I said, I tell you what, if I have to quit my job, I'll be there. And so we did that and worked on things. And things have been up and down. I'd honestly say I'm 47 now. The last 2 years of marriage that we've had are the best I've ever had. I've dealt with depression and anxiety. And as bad as it's gotten sometimes in my life, like, I don't know that I ever got to the point where I was like planning suicide, but thinking like maybe my family and the world would be better off without me is kind of the point to as bad as I got. The happiness that I've had in the last 2 years, I mean, it was honestly so good. It was just like, holy crap, if you told me I had to go through another 30 years to get these two, sure. Yep.
Wow.
And honestly, it was just coming clean with my wife about the fact that, coming clean to my wife about the fact that, we're not, that I'm bisexual, and that I told her that I didn't believe in monogamy.
Wow.
And that was when I told my wife that, I expected that probably was going to lead to divorce. I mean, I wasn't expecting the conversation to go well. My wife loves me, accepts me for who I am, is not okay with non-monogamy, but doesn't judge me for not. And so, I mean, I to the point, honestly, I hated myself because I thought that those two things made me a bad person. And the fact that my wife was able to look at me and just be like, just because you feel like that way, it's just because that's what you believe, you're so worthy of love. And the fact that she still loved me was honestly, these last 2 years is the first time I've really truly loved exactly who I am. And I can tell you right now that my wife has no interest in being non-monogamous. But if my choices are to be married to somebody else and or in a relationship with somebody else and be non-monogamous, or be married to my wife, that decision is easy. I mean, the ways that she has made me feel loved and accepted has let me do the same for myself. And so I am beyond lucky and beyond happy.
My friend, a couple things, which is one, I find myself so impressed that you were able to both take a deep breath and be honest, and that it saved your marriage, and that on top of it, you get to be more open and honest about who you are and how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that that's tied into church counseling, but is also right. No, but that's reflective of
the church counseling 17 years ago.
Okay, but still, your life story.
Like,
one thing I will say is what you just told me is about as far away from the youngest delegate to a Republican convention in your area's history. It's
you think
a real life of life changes.
Yeah. How much time we got left?
With you, not enough. 19 minutes, but you and I could talk for 5 more hours.
Okay, I got to toss one thing in here that, because I absolutely love the bonus material, and for the audience listening, I did not get paid for this plug. I love the bonus material, and there's one particular question for these bonus 5 that you have asked a few times that you hate asking. You almost seem like you get uncomfortable and embarrassed to have to ask this question. Do you know what question I'm talking about?
So when was the last time you pooped yourself?
Yeah. Let me just tell you, Chris, if you are lucky enough to pull that number, I am the reason you need to keep that in the rotation. Just saying. It's epic.
Oh, boy. You know I love a poop story. I know many of you hate a poop story. So now we're playing a dangerous game of will we get to the poop story? Hint, not right now. Don't worry, everybody. But what we do get to right now, actually, are some advertisements. That's what we get to. And we'll see what we get to when we get back.
I don't know about you, but these days it feels like the world and our lives are moving at hyper speed. The all-new Nissan Murano is an unapologetic refuge amidst the hustle and bustle. In the Nissan Murano, you can take a beat, catch your breath, and re-energize. With its elevated modern interior and bold new exterior, this vehicle stands out. Its massaging leather-appointed seats melt away the tension of a busy day, adds to that feeling of refuge. Optional features like panoramic moonroof that adds tons of natural light to its roomy cabin, and ambient lighting sets the right vibe. So crucial in dreary winter days. The Bose premium sound system helps you escape further into your favorite music. The Nissan Murano and all its features gives you the greatest rush, while not feeling like you're rushing at all. Find your moment of calm in the all-new Nissan Murano. Drive the all-new 2025 Nissan Murano today. Features listed or available upgrades.
Thanks again to all of our advertisers. Now let's finish off the phone call.
Let me just tell you, Chris, if you are lucky enough to pull that number, I am the reason you need to keep that in the rotation. Just saying. It's epic. Epic. I mean, we can leave it up to fate whether you get that, or we can even tease it to say, even if that question isn't asked, you can ask that one if you want. We can automatically have it, or we can leave it up to fate.
There's a part, and I want Andrea's input on this as well in our chat. There's a part of me that's like, well, I need to hear this story. There's a part of me that also sits here and goes, I believe in that random number generator. And with each question that's not that, for you to call your shot and say that you have an epic poop story. But here's another thing I know is I already have a sense that our fan base is going to be demanding a follow-up call with you. So we'll get another chance if it doesn't come up today. But that random number generator might just be our salvation on this.
Then maybe I shouldn't have brought that up, because that Facebook group might go nuts with speculation if that the question doesn't get asked today.
Oh, there might be people might start generating fan fiction where they imagine what this poop story could be.
They won't even come close. They won't even come close.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And then honestly, there was something I was planning on bringing up when I talked about my son going off to the Marines, and I was like, crap, this phone call is just going to be deep and heavy and depressing the whole time. And I was just like trying to figure out a way to have a kind of a fun conversation first. So I'm kind of glad it kind of organically happened. But I think the toughest thing is super proud of my son, super excited to see him next week. But when I get there next week, I get to tell him that his grandma's probably only got a few more weeks left to live. So
that's super sad.
It's just tough knowing that this is going to be the best day of his life. And also, I mean, he knew that she had cancer and he knew that it was terminal.
This is your mom?
And I've been really carefully just kind of, no, it's my wife's mom. Yeah, so I get to break that news to him.
I'm really sorry. That's sad.
Yeah. And she is so awesome and so amazing. I mean, I love my parents, and I'm super close to my parents, and my parents have a lot to do with who I am. But I mean, I think honestly, other than my parents, my mother-in-law has probably had more of an effect on my life than probably anybody else. From just creating just a unbelievably strong and beautifully pig-headed wife for me to marry. I mean, she is awesome. And the fact that she would call me on my bullshit when I wasn't being a good husband early in our marriage, the fact that, I mean, honestly, her letting me know that I'm a good husband and I'm the type of person that she wants her wife to be with is probably the proudest I've ever felt of myself. I've felt of myself when she told me that. Knowing that she feels like I deserve her daughter is unbelievable.
Yeah, there's no shortage of things to talk about with you. I'm really sorry for your loss. I'm really sorry for the suffering and the loss that you're sensing is coming down the pike.
Yeah. I mean, we honestly, I mean, it was a terminal diagnosis. We got, almost a year and a half ago now. And I know that most of my wife and most of her brothers and sisters, I don't think really looked at like what, the time frame and what the progression was going to look like. And I was honestly, I didn't know if she was going to make it to last Christmas. And if she did, I was pretty sure it wasn't going to be good as far as her health at the time. But I mean, she fought like hell. She had a great Christmas. We did a family trip together with all of her kids together. I mean, it was just so good. And yeah, she just fought so hard, and we were lucky that we got as many, not just months, but good months as we got with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
We've got about 12 minutes left.
Okay. I don't know. You can shoot if you got some questions, or I could.
What's
toss
that?
out some other crazy crap. I said you can ask some questions, or I can toss out some more crazy crap if you want.
I did want. There's so many things to follow up on. I do like your ability to just keep throwing curveballs in there. Couple things. One thing that I wanted to put out there. You said you came to a realization at some point that for you to be a good Christian meant being pro-choice, which is rare, right? The popular dialogue is that it's the opposite, or that even people who balance both of those things reconcile them. But you say that you see them as dovetailing together, and I'm really fascinated to know the philosophy behind that.
Okay. So here's the thing is, you don't have to be pro-abortion to be pro-choice. Here's the thing. This is kind of how I put it to a lot of my Christian friends when I'm talking to them about it, is I'll ask questions in a certain way. The question I always start out with is to you, is it any more of a tragedy if they have an abortion when it's 2 or 3 weeks in, or if it's 25 weeks in? And they usually say, no, it's the same thing either way. We believe, life begins at conception. And so I'll point out to them that a lot of people don't realize this, is that when you start to restrict abortion, the number of abortions actually increases. And you can see it, first off, I mean, and we're not just talking about countries not similar to the United States. We're talking about countries similar to the United States, and now the United States itself. So Ireland is a big one. When it became, the Constitution was changed, they won in court where you're allowed to get an abortion in Ireland. They studied it, and they were really shocked because the number of abortions performed in Ireland actually went down when it was legalized. And when I read that was when I was really trying to grapple with, okay, this is I'm progressive, and I'm like, but this is the one thing where I'm really struggling with my faith. That was something that was really important to me. I mean, I've got someone close to me that is around because her mother chose to have her baby even after she was the victim of a rape. I was really struggling with those two things as I was, and I was trying to figure out why would the number of abortions go down? But if you think about it, if you take the time to put yourself in those people's shoes, a lot of times when you get in a pregnancy in a situation like that, it's, I'm not in a position financially to raise a child, whatever the reason is. But it can be difficult. You have to take time off and take a train to Northern Ireland if you're in Ireland to get an abortion. And so then it's like, okay, I want to get this done early. And I'm on the train. Maybe I'm having some second thoughts. I'm is this really what I want to do? I'm not sure. And then you get up to the clinic and they give you your options and you might be like, I don't know what I want to do here. But, if I go back to Ireland, now if I decide I do and I don't get the abortion, if I go back to Ireland and decide I do, now I've got to take another day off work. I might have a hard time affording rent. I've only got a certain number of vacation days. It's really expensive for a train ticket. So I might as well just do it now because I'm here. So when you give women the time to choose and not feel rushed or forced, you end up having fewer abortions. You can see it in Texas right now. After their 6-week abortion ban, when it came to, I know theirs is a little bit different where it's not just illegal, but you could sue people if they help someone get an abortion. But when they put that in, the number of abortions in the state of Texas has gone up. So it's like, and I'll put it to my Christian friends: do you really want fewer abortions, or do you want to control women's bodies? Which is it? I mean, if you want to control women's bodies, then by all means outlaw abortion. If you want to reduce the number of abortions, then you should make them easily accessible so that a woman can take the time to make her choice and not feel rushed and forced to do it quickly.
Well said. Well said, with far more research than I could ever bring to the table.
I've got like a phone alarm going off.
Yeah, take your time.
I think I'm back. I think we're good.
The most thoughtful caller who's ever been on this show.
What's that?
I said you're the most thoughtful caller that's ever been on this show. You've got so many things that you've said that have gone in all these different directions, but they're all backed up with like reasoning and heart and life experience to explain your choices and your changes. It's refreshing. Some of it deals with stuff that's so specific to you, and some of it's a good reminder to not just have these gut reaction instincts against things or people, to actually go live life and feel it out through experience. I feel very lucky to talk to you, is the point.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I'm lucky I got through. I mean, I've listened to all the episodes. I didn't start out day one. I had a midlife crisis and went from an office job to driving a semi truck, and kind of got hooked on you driving truck when my first year driving truck.
Love that. I would love to help the truck drivers of America stay awake on those late night drives.
Yeah.
It'd be a beautiful thing. Beautiful legacy to leave.
That was another fun conversation with my wife. I'm going to quit my office job and become a truck driver.
Oh, really? You went from office job to truck driver. What was behind that?
Yeah. It was miserable. I was tired of quotas and deadlines, and I was being a mental health professional at the time, and I honestly, my son, the one that's in the Marines, he was a sophomore, and I was kind of an asshole. I mean, I was just in a bad mood all the time. I was a dick, and because he and I were so similar, he would honestly get the brunt of it sometimes because, our personalities, even though they're so similar, I'd always know he was going to climb out the window one night to sneak out, and I was laying in bed, and I was like, is going to sneak out tonight? Oh, bleep that one too, dang it.
Bleep the name. We'll bleep
I'm
the
really
name.
bad at that. I kept myself anonymous, but I keep on doxing my own kids. But I was like, I bet you my son is going to sneak out tonight.
Again.
And I sat in bed, looked at my watch, and I was like, that should be enough time. And I walked upstairs. Yep, he was gone. Sure shit, gone. And I knew exactly where he went to, where the party was in town that night, because it's Halloween night. And grabbed his brother and drove over to the party, and I told Isaac, I said, go in and find your brother and let him know that if he is not here in 10 minutes, I'm going to come in and make a scene and embarrass him. But we would clash like that. And I was just, like I said, I was a dick. I was kind of an ass. I got angry real easy. And I always brought work home with me when I was stressed out. And I just was like, I need to make a change somewhere in my life. Otherwise, my son's just going to look back and be like, God, Dad was a real dick. And so I quit my job, started driving truck. It's stressful in a different way, but I never bring it home. Never bring it home. That's another reason that our marriage is in my life is as happy as it's ever been, is because I was just like, you know what, even if it's a pay cut, I don't care. And it was a pay cut to begin with, but I mean, once you drive truck for a while, you can get a little better job. And so it's more of a financial lateral move at this point in time, but it was a risk at the time, but I couldn't go on, bringing that home and having my family have to deal with it.
Are you still driving trucks?
Yeah.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Nice, but also a lonely existence when you're actually in the process of driving the truck, no? Unless you're not doing long. Are you doing long hauls?
But there's a lot of time to have those. I'm going about a couple nights a week.
Okay.
So I have a run that's about what I can drive in one day away, stay there where I deliver to, and then the next day come back.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 2 or 3 nights a week, I'm usually gone. But I'm a person that doesn't mind being alone with my thoughts. It kind of lets me think about some of the stuff that we got to talk about today. I just kind of sit there and listen to thought-provoking podcasts and read books at night and stuff like that. And man, you meet some unbelievably awesome people. Like, I've always been fascinated by the Sikh religion, and a lot of the truck drivers.
There's a lot of Sikh truck drivers. I've been reading about this.
What's that?
I've read that there's an upsurge in Sikh truck drivers and a lot of spreading of different ethnic foods to areas with truck stops because of the Sikh presence of presence of so many Sikh truck drivers. Yep. Love the Sikh religion.
Well, and I'm in the northern part of the U.S., so we get a lot of Canadian drivers, and a lot of the Sikhs that I run into are ones that had immigrated from northern India to Canada. But it's so cool getting to talk to them because I, ask about that Sikh temple that feeds all the poor people over there, and it's crazy because they're like some of the most fierce fighters in the history of the world, but then are so dedicated to feeding the poor and taking care of those that are. I get to chat with those guys all the time.
I'll also say this: anytime I've been on a plane and I see Sikh passengers get on, I let out a deep breath and I go, I feel safe. Mm-hmm. I feel safe. The Sikh religion, I believe I've talked about it on the show, but I first learned of the Sikh religion. I once stumbled into a food festival in New York City when I lived there and found out that it was the Sikh Day Festival. And I started walking around and inquiring about the food, and I was told all of it's free, that it's part of our religion to feed people. And if you're coming up here because you're hungry, take the food. And then I started reading about the ceremonial blades that are carried, but and no religion is perfect. And I've heard that there's layers within Sikhism as well. But overall, as far as the major stated goals and actions of that religion, I have such immense respect for the Sikh people. Yeah. I'm glad to hear you do as well.
They got that one temple over in India that does like 30, 40, 50,000 free meals a day.
Wow. That's walking the walk right there.
Oh, and it's the coolest thing, to see how, the process, the assembly line process from cooking to serving to cleaning, And it's not only the poor. Literally, if you're a tourist, you can go in and get a free meal. It's not like we're trying to feed the poor. It's no, we want to feed everyone.
The hungry. If you're hungry right now, come on in.
Yeah. Yep.
We have 3 seconds left, so we don't have time to talk about this. But do you think we're entering a phase of history where, and you've lived this experience, and I imagine not easy. So with me to ask it as time's running out, I'm starting to think that in a way that's very positive, everyone's going to be allowed to be bisexual moving forward. That might be the baseline, that we'll all just assume we're bisexual and then we define it in whatever direction it may be. Your thoughts on this in closing, and what an unfair one to throw as time is literally up.
Well, I think so, on the side of guys, I mean, I think one of the things is like, it's almost tougher when you're talking to gay men, because a lot of times they're not very accepting of bisexuality, at least from what my experience. Now, I have a couple of friends perfectly accept just fine, but a lot of people just think that, oh, you're just, dragging your feet till you admit that you're gay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you get a lot of that, honestly.
Right.
And, and then you have to recognize the fact that I get a little bit of privilege, that I am married to a woman. So I can walk down the road and not have to worry about getting second glances or frowns because I'm holding hands or kissing another guy.
Yeah. What a beautiful call. Never imagined we'd touch upon so many meaningful things at the beginning of the hour. And I thank you for this call. Now, we're going to stay on the line together. For anybody who doesn't know, we're saying goodbye right now to everybody who's listening on the free feed. For people who continue on, it means you've signed up at beautifulanonymous.com. Our caller has called a shot and said that if it lands on the question about poop stories, that you have the story that justifies the existence of that question.
Oh, yeah.
So for anybody who hasn't signed up, now's the perfect time to sign up for our bonus content. You go to beautifulanonymous.com. I'm incredibly proud of the quality of the content we put out each week. I think the people who signed up have been pleased, and you're calling it. I want to actually check right now. I have not activated the random number generator yet, but I am going to go ahead and search. You're saying that if it lands, question number 79 is, have you ever pooped your pants? If so, where's the most awkward place it ever happened? I believe that's the one in question. You're saying if it lands on that one, that you have the story for that.
Yeah.
All right.
Small teaser. At the time that it happened, there was no pants on.
Caller, thank you so much. Sincerely, such a joy to talk to you. So fun, so surprising, kept me on my toes. Must have thrown my glasses. I'm sure Pete is out there 3-4 times. Pete, you'll tell me, I'm sure, how many times I threw those glasses. Thank you, caller. Thank you to the High Priestess Andrea Quinn for producing the show. Thank you to Shell Shag for our theme music. Go to punchup.live/Chris Gethard if you want to know more about where I'm out on the road. If you have a story you want to share and we don't tape at times that work for you, leave us a voicemail, 973-306-4676. If you want to follow us, we have a Facebook group. It's a huge community, 35,000 people. It's so chill. We discuss episodes. It's relaxed. You can join it at Beautiful Anonymous, the community, on Facebook. We're also on Instagram at Beautiful Anonymous Pod, and we're starting a TikTok soon. Anyway, goodbye, everybody. This week on Beautiful Anonymous Plus, here's some of what you'll get from the 5 questions.
So I live in a small town, moved to it, having grown up in a bigger city. Like grew up in a major metropolitan area, and now I live in this rural area. I'm a transplant. So there's a lot of longtime residents that, even though I've lived here for a long time now, they don't know me that well. I mean, there's some people that know my name, but there's a significant portion of the population of this town that wouldn't know me if you mentioned my real first and last name. But if they asked you if you know who Kinky Claus is, they would know me.
This cannot be true. This cannot be your actual nickname.
Yep.
Kinky Claus? Like Santa Claus, but kinky?
Kinky claws.
Don't forget to sign up for Beautiful Anonymous Plus at beautifulanonymous.com.